Stardew Valley Expanded is a fan-made expansion with millions and millions of downloads, and the creator did so well for himself he got hired to help develop official updates for Stardew Valley. Some say that Expanded is a must-download that improves Stardew Valley in every way, while others deride the mod's many additions for being overwhelming, or feeling like a layer of lower quality fanfiction superimposed on a better game that didn't need fixing. I've never played Expanded, so I'm going to give it a whirl and answer the question that's been burning in the back of my skull for some time. Is Stardew Valley Expanded worth playing? The only way to find out is to try it myself. By a friend's recommendation, I'll play one of 3 new farm maps, the Grandpa's Farm, a medium-sized map with extra quests and progression. The other maps look a bit too large for me. I'm going to casually play the game for a year or so with a focus on exploring all the new content, and I'll pass judgment on whether it fits in with the existing vibe of Stardew Valley. I'll also be checking if the new stuff is as high quality and well made as the original, and I also want to know if it's well balanced and doesn't warp the game too badly. Since I'm using mods, I'll use a couple quality of life mods to help me experience the new content from Expanded, like an NPC location tracker to show heads on the map so I can find and talk to the new characters. I'll go to Cindersat first to find new people to talk to. And it's already quite shocking how different everything looks. It's much less wild and more built up, with extra paths, bridges, and buildings. And the extra tufts of grass, flowers, and tree variety for decoration makes it look really good. This is Andy, the first new NPC, and he's tending his own modest farm. He doesn't work for Joja, he just has a branded hat. Let's look inside. Okay, let's leave. It makes sense that a small rural community like Pelican Town would have more than one farmer on the outskirts, so this seems like a reasonable addition in an otherwise empty area. Connecting the southern forest and town is a brand new vineyard, run by the local anime girl Sophia. On top of doing presumably Sailor Moon stuff overnight, she sells wine and sprinklers, which is very interesting. It's not cheap, so it's still quite valuable to craft your own, but I think it's neat to have an alternative for people who have money but haven't unlocked the crafting recipe yet. You can pet Alex's dog, so Expanded is basically the best mod ever. I could end the video right here. North of the doghouse is a new house, the Jenkins residence. Inside are 2 new NPCs, Victor, a new bachelor, and his mother Olivia, who you can also romance. I guess a real freak could choose to date both at once. This house is enormous, and the Jenkins are canonically very rich. I have thoughts on that, but I'll put them on the back burner for a few moments to finish exploring the rest of town. Jojamart's been, well, expanded on. The nameless cashier we're familiar with now has a name, face, and dialogue. Claire is also one of the new bachelorettes. Morris has a proper office now, and he's been upgraded from general antagonist to a full-fledged villager you can befriend, and stars in a new Joja-centric storyline if you choose Joja over the community center, which I will not be doing. I'm interested in the new community center content. I think adding characters and content to Jojamart is a good idea. Jojamart is already a core part of Pelican Town in the base game, so fleshing that out a bit more by making the cashier a character fits in nicely with what we're already used to having. I plan to fill out friendships with the new characters and get to know them. I'll pass on the old characters, but I will point out that Marlin and Gunther can be befriended now, which is great because they're already part of the community and felt underdeveloped. There's some new areas east of town, a little garden space that I can't seem to interact with, and a big old bridge to nowhere. Well, there's an optional map to the right you can download, but I don't recommend it because it's just a little silly. It's thousands and thousands of tiles of empty space. If you want an enormous sandbox to play in, go ahead, it's farmable, but I think that kinda breaks the game in some ways by giving you infinite space to use. I'm not interested. My thoughts on the town as a whole. I really like the new decoration to outdoor spaces. Those natural tufts of grass break up flat spaces and adds more depth to the foliage. The white birch trees are a great new addition, and I like the cobbled stone pathways that help define the paths around town and provide a lot of visual interest to otherwise plain dirt. From a visual standpoint, this is clearly an upgrade from the base game in my eyes. On the topic of visuals, I thought that the sprite work done for the new character portraits is generally competent to quite good. They're a similar match for the style and quality of the original character's artwork. But getting back to my earlier thoughts about the rich people in town, I don't know if all these new characters fit the vibe of Stardew Valley. Pelican Town is rural, run down, and has seen better days. The local infrastructure is crumbling. The broken down bus, the condemned mine, the collapsed bridge to the quarry, the abandoned community center, the blocked off railroad, the overgrown farm you inherit. Everything about this place has seen better days. The entire purpose of the farmer's journey is falling in love with this beaten down small town and building it back up. And that's why I don't like affluent rich people strutting around town talking about how they dropped 10,000 smackaroos on a vintage wine. This place is poor. Some people are struggling. Pam's unemployed because the bus went out of service. She lives in a trailer home and her situation bleeds into Penny's life as well. Harvey has dialogue about barely making ends meet since he has too few patients. Pierre worries that his local shop will be outpriced by the new Joja Mart and be forced to shut down. And the struggle is echoed in some of the new characters as well, as Andy's whole deal is that he's a poor farmer who's barely getting by, relying on forage from the woods to stay afloat. And in the middle of this run-down town, we have a literal mansion, where Olivia clearly doesn't pay her fair share of property taxes. I guess rich people not paying taxes for public services is pretty realistic. Anyway, the vibe is off. I don't think the Jenkins fit in the overarching story of small-town decay and revitalization. It's not just Olivia either, mind you, since I watched a cutscene way down the line from now where Olivia alludes to Sophia's vineyard as being very, very profitable. It doesn't feel right to be walking around and fixing up a broken town while some of its inhabitants are sitting on piles of gold like a pair of dragons. Although the endgame of every Stardew farmer involves chasing seemingly infinite profits and watching numbers go up, so maybe this all does fit in and I'm just complaining. Hey, speaking of numbers going up, this video is sponsored by Idle Obelisk Miner. It's an incremental game. Mine rocks, buy upgrades, and watch those numbers climb. The core gameplay is simple at first, but the depth of content to discover is staggering. After playing the game for a couple days to try it out, I was informed I had only completed around 2% of the game. The game's jam-packed with content, and the developers are constantly delivering new updates to add more. Knowing me, I've got to play more to unlock that fishing minigame. I'm told there's catfish to catch, and any fan of my channel knows that's my life's purpose. Idle Obelisk Miner isn't just some annoying cash-grabby mobile game, there's absolutely zero ads, ever. The game's free to play, and won't ever beg for your money. It's all optional, and it doesn't demand your constant attention either, allowing you to make progress while offline. If you're on the hunt for an excellent mobile game that won't bombard you with ads, don't take my word for it, check out how well the game's reviewed. Go ahead and click that link in the description or pinned comment, and try Idle Obelisk Miner today. Back to my first day, I haven't actually finished exploring, since there's a new extension to the west of Cindersap. This is a truly wild area for foraging, and I really like the concept if not the execution. I like the idea because foraging is largely an unrewarding activity compared to mining, farming, or fishing, so a dedicated area to explore with lots of forage and trees makes foraging a bigger thing to engage in. There's an abandoned farmhouse tucked into the corner here, a bit of environmental storytelling that ties into the overarching concept of moving into a slowly decaying town. I thought this was a nice touch. The longer I stay out here though, the more I dislike it, because it's an enormous map, and it takes way too long to search around every corner for forage. The game does reward your exploration. There's a ancient battlefield or something with some artifacts and a weapon, which is a very useful pickup. The forest sword is drastically stronger than anything you'd use early on in the mines, dealing far more damage than the rusty sword or the steel smallsword. I was excited at first to stumble on this, but it turned out to be the first in a series of overly generous crutches that made the system of weapons and their progression feel surprisingly shallow. You'll see what I mean as I get more weapons. It took me 4 hours to run one circle around Cindersap West, and I didn't comb it thoroughly either, I just ran around the perimeter. I loved the idea of a dedicated foraging zone, but this is a case of bigger isn't always better. It feels really empty and time-intensive to traverse, and the oversized repetitive wilderness doesn't really fit in that well with the expected scale of the in-game areas that we're used to. This concept is going to come up again and again in the new areas featured and expanded. I'll need to earn money and go through the basic progression of Stardew Valley to find all of the new content to showcase. A lot of what Expanded has to offer is unlocked after completing the community center or Joja Mart. Besides a few new NPCs around town, the early game feels pretty much the same as normal Stardew, as Expanded had the forethought to drip feed its new content over time so you aren't immediately overwhelmed by stuff, which I think is a good call, but after hearing about 43 new fish, I was mildly surprised to not encounter anything new for some time. I added a visible fish quality of life mod to show fish swimming in the water so it's easier for me to organically encounter new fish as I play without looking everything up. I was delighted to stop by the museum and discover that the tables were converted into glass display cases, which I think look much better. There's a lot of small visual updates like this all over, like the interior of Clint's shop and the Adventurers Guild. I'm generally a big fan of them. I did eventually catch a tadpole, my first new fish, and a moderately rare one. Terrible value and not worth eating, but I do stumble into a great use for these later. I was still working on my fishing level when I also discovered the frog the next day, which is restricted to rainy evenings and has a minimum fishing level requirement. That was a fun discovery, but they're nearly catfish level difficulty for half the sale price, so they kinda harsh the vibe of my low level fishing training. There aren't actually very many new crops in Expanded, surprisingly, and half of them are late game, but I did dig up a rare golden carrot seed from a dig spot. That's a fun little reward. The carrot sells for 1,000 gold and they can't be put into the seed maker, and the seeds are hard to come by, so they're a nice treat rather than being overpowered. Speaking of new crops, I encountered the cucumber seed at Pierre's, the only new spring seed for sale, not counting fruit tree saplings. Cucumbers are pretty nice. The seed's expensive, but the crop restores a ton of energy, filling a comfortable niche. In general, I thought the new crops in Expanded are good at fulfilling a purpose without crowding out the old stuff, with the more valuable crops being limited in number or gated behind a lot of game progression, like we're talking post-Ginger Island. I'm definitely a fan of how farming feels in Expanded, and potentially OP late-game crops are fine in a world where we already had stuff like starfruit and ancient fruit to make millions on. I've talked about foraging, fishing, and farming, so is early-game mining any different? Well, the mines are, missing, but if I keep on walking, there's a staircase leading to a beautiful mountain summit where the Adventurers Guild was moved. What is this boat for? A new area? They forgot to lock the guild prior to the Slay 10 Slimes quest, so I popped in and look at this recipe. This is disgusting. Speed boosts are very powerful for getting around quickly and accomplishing more things each day, and because of that, there aren't any recipes in the base game with a +2 speed boost. Even using cheese seasoning to increase the potency of buffs doesn't work on speed, and well, for a reason. Now we know what the frogs are for. I'll come back to this and look into making frog legs later. Mining felt the same and Expanded. No new monsters or ores or anything in the mines, but the forest sword I found on day 1 made it trivial to defend myself. I'm off to go unlock the community center. There's an option in the mod's config file to change the bundles to include new items from Expanded, and another option to make the bundles more difficult. And anybody who knows my channel knows I like a challenge. The Wizard Tower got a big overhaul, adding in this basement area for library and a bunch of runes on the ground. These are supposedly teleports, but I'm not allowed to use them yet. I did look up the difficult bundles in advance so I wouldn't screw myself over by missing something. They're not too much harder than the normal ones, but rare items like this new 4-leaf clover will stonewall me from accessing more bundles for a long time, and the construction bundle isn't a good choice for first bundle either. So it turned out I overlooked a new NPC available from the beginning, Martin, a teenager working part-time at Joja Mart. It feels a bit odd to have extra villagers walking around town who don't live here. All the Joja employees take the bus in and out of town each day they appear as they live elsewhere, which does make the bus stop feel like a proper part of town, but I'm not sure how to reconcile the whole concept of the bus needing to be repaired with these guys going in and out starting from day 1. Feels a touch odd. That being said, I am still enjoying the Joja Mart expansion, and my desire to romance Claire and save her from her soul-crushing job makes me finally understand what some people see in Shane. I'll start heavily skimming through the days. There's over a year worth of footage, and much of the first half consists of fairly normal Stardew Valley gameplay before unlocking new stuff. I made a point of rushing the steel axe from Clint. I'm still stuck on the spring foraging bundle, and the secret woods is a good place to find the 4-leaf clovers I'm missing. On my way to the woods, I ran into a new cutscene with Willy. There's a couple of these events where he'll point out new fish and where to catch them once your fishing level gets high enough to get the job done. I'm a really big fan of the game letting you know what's been added, since fish are easy to miss if you don't look them up. Secret Woods got a complete overhaul, and I'm a big fan. The design looks nice and it feels more like an actual area and not a supply closet. There's new forage, seeds to dig up, and generally feels like a destination I enjoy visiting compared to the original. There are a half dozen more hardwood stumps each day. Whether or not you consider the extra generosity to be a good thing for the game is subjective, but I generally approve of things that make foraging more rewarding as I feel like it's pretty underwhelming in the base game. This might only be on the Grandpa's farm, but I have a direct connection to the secret woods, which makes coming here a lot more appealing. On my way out, I was surprised to see that the traveling merchant now has a proper character portrait, which I thought was a nice touch. Festivals feel pretty much the same as usual, with the addition of the new NPCs walking around, but they all seem to fit in pretty well without overcrowding the place. Earlier, I mentioned a bunch of weapons got heavily buffed. Check out the free crystal dagger you get on floor 60. While the original crystal dagger is pretty terrible, the new one has 2.5 times the damage and a dramatically higher chance to land a critical hit. Free strong weapons like this sure are convenient, but then there's no point to all the weapons that didn't get these huge buffs. Who cares about all that crap from the Adventurers Guild or random drops in crates? This managed to create a weird feeling of Expanded having less content because of what it makes obsolete. It took me until Spring 16, but I did find a 4-leaf clover in the secret woods, so I can finally start doing bundles. Because I'm playing hard bundles, I'll need 3 more clovers for the Enchanter's bundle, but that's a problem for later. The hard versions of the bundles are, for the most part, the same ones from vanilla but with higher item requirements and occasionally one bonus new crop, forage, fish, or fruit. I didn't notice until now, but I went shopping for seeds at Joja Mart because Pierre's closed on Wednesdays, and I noticed that all the seed prices were discounted by 10%. This makes sense in the game's story. After all, Pierre's main problem is that he's getting priced out by discount Joja goods, so as the farmer, continuing to support local business at a cost instead of bowing to evil Walmart is actually a purposeful decision you have to make when playing Expanded, while the base game gives you the easy way out. It makes Joja seeds inexplicably more expensive than Pierre's before buying a membership. I definitely agree with this change for storytelling purposes, as choosing to complete the community center and run Joja out of town has more meaning to it when you're purposefully giving up something useful. Unrelated, an issue I'm having with some of the new fish in Expanded is that some of them are really rare. I get that the new king salmon Willie told me the cat shouldn't be common, since it's more valuable than any other spring fish, but it's already extremely out of the way in the corner of the oversized expansion of the Cindersap, and it has time of day restrictions. It's kind of frustrating to catch 20 fish without landing a single salmon. Speaking of fishing, the other 2 valuable fish in town are the butterfish and puppyfish, which you can find 24/7 on Shearwater Bridge. The puppyfish is rare and difficult enough to justify its value, but the butterfish is a problem child. It's reasonably common, and as valuable as the very good catfish, but with no weather, time, or seasonal restrictions in any way, it's always available. It's also extremely convenient, because the bridge is right next to the minecart by Clint's for easy travel once unlocked. Making big fishing profits in spring was previously only possible during the occasional rain, but now you can do so whenever. To me, this feels like the same point I was making about weapons earlier. When Expanded throws something really good in your lap, the newly created imbalance has a risk of detracting from the base game experience, highlighting one shiny new toy, and potentially pushing away a dozen old ones that aren't viable anymore. Maybe I'm a little too sensitive to perceived game balance issues, but as someone who's put a lot of thought into optimization and put that into practice for my challenge runs, I know for a fact that I could abuse these fish to hell and back for profit. Speaking of that new toy feeling, I got a Lucky Yeti's Tooth Drop in the mines, which was immediately obsoleted by the huge buffs to the freebie Obsidian Edge, which gained 10 more damage and a bunch of extra crit. There's consistently no point to using weapons besides the specific ones that Expanded intended for you to use. Like, yeah, mining's easier, I guess, but it's less interesting for me. I decided I'd try setting up a fish pond for tadpoles. Instead of producing roe, these guys produce frogs. I'm planning to abuse the +2 speed boost from frog legs once this pond gets rolling. In general, I've been focusing on establishing my farm and haven't done a lot in terms of friendships, but I'm going to start getting that rolling to get to know the new characters. If I had more hearts, I could even ask Victor or Sophia to the flower dance, but I don't think the other new marriage candidates like Olivia and the Wizard are available to dance. Yeah, you can date the Wizard now. I'm not doing it, but it is funny. Something I liked about the new cutscenes I've seen so far is if you earn half a heart of friendship, the farmers around the valley give you new farmer welcoming gifts to get settled in, a free sprinkler from Sophia, and a couple free strawberry seeds from Andy. It makes the place feel like a community. Speaking of Andy, I think his character really fills in a missing piece of the overall cast, representing a realistic view of a rural farmer with a difficult life, lashing out at things he can't control or doesn't understand, and he's giving a meaningful character arc to improve his circumstance and unearth the kind heart he had before his life became so harsh. I think his obvious flaws and changing attitude over time gives him nuance and a lot to explore. That being said, I really don't like the character dialogue and expanded as much as the original game. I feel like the author is trying too hard to, well, expand the world beyond Pelican Town. So Lewis brings up a mysterious Kendra, who is literally never seen or even mentioned again. What the hell was that about? But yeah, Andy actually does warm up considerably if you get to know him. Between the farmers, I really don't like Sophia in comparison. She feels more like someone's Discord e-girl dream girlfriend than like an actual person. I needed to catch a new spring fish for the river fish bundle before summertime, and I ran into the same problem I had earlier with the king salmon. Some of these new fish are way too rare. I didn't catch my first goldfish until my 22nd bite. I already had 9 smallmouth bass by then. Goldfish stopped showing up at 5 PM and I needed 3 of them. Thankfully, my bait maker and a bubble patch came in clutch, and I barely scraped by. The new seed for summer is the butternut squash. I think that's a fun plant to add to the game. In practice, I think they're just slightly worse melons. They take the same time to grow and are less valuable. I'll grow a bunch regardless. I need 10 gold star ones for the quality crops bundle. Early summer introduces a new character, Susan. There's actually been a farmer living up by the railroad the whole time, but she's been blocked in until now. I went up there to check things out, and wow, the railroad area is super different. It's full of stuff now, compared to the rather empty, forgettable zone I'm used to. The actual Perfection Summit remains blocked, but the area up there was also put to use. It's been a while, but I finally got the hard bundles complete for the minecart repair. Not having this has been a huge pain given that the mines entrance got moved further away. I think there's a config setting to put the entrance to the mines back in the original spot if it's bothering you. The tadpole pond reproduces daily, so it's already been at max capacity and producing frogs. Time to try some frog legs. Look how substantial this speed boost is compared to my previous walking speed. You could go even faster by drinking coffee as well. The duration's a bit short, you need 3 meals to maintain a speed boost for the whole day, but it sure is worth it. I'm starting to learn about Victor and Olivia as I build friendship. Victor's actually a pretty good character. He's an unemployed college graduate with good prospects but no clear path forwards, due to his internal struggle of wanting a meaningful job in his local community, as opposed to moving to the city to work for a soulless corporation like Joja, and his ex-corporate mother struggles to understand his hesitance and seemingly directionless behavior, building friction between them. I liked Victor's character writing, and I think it's very realistic to explore the family dynamic. Olivia pushes too hard and is overbearing regarding her idealized path for her son's life, and Victor retreats into his shell and can't confide in his mother because he's scared of being judged for his decisions. It's a good character arc to explore. On the flip side, I have literally no idea what they're going for with Morris. I'm not sure if trying to humanize him and integrate him into the community works, since he still frequently comes off as an uncaring, heartless manager that's eating his employees alive. I think ultimately he's going to have an incomplete character arc unless you do the Joja route, so I guess I can't say anything definitive. I found something fun today. My new gold pickaxe let me uncover a mysterious shed hidden on the edge of the farm, covered in debris and sporting what appears to be literally money growing on trees. That's cute. Also, wow, that is a billion times better than actual fruit. The building's overgrown, but maybe I can repair it. So it turns out that Robin can repair it. The material cost is pretty heavy. The hardwood and stone isn't too bad, but 50 iron bars is a bit steep, and 20 battery packs is a big ask since you're mostly waiting on thunderstorms to get those and you also want batteries for iridium sprinklers. I'll prioritize the shed repair and see if it's worth it. I haven't vibed with Sophia at all, and this cutscene is a good time to bring up a reason she's not clicking with me as a character. Sophia content feels like a disconnected island compared to the rest of the game because she almost never leaves the farmhouse, lives in her own carved out little corner that isn't integrated with the town, and she's so irrelevant to every existing character that she spawned in a brand new NPC that doesn't live here to put another body in her cutscene. This would be fine for a minor character, but she's presented as a fully fleshed out bachelorette, yet has, like, no connections to anyone or anything going on. She doesn't feel like part of Stardew Valley to me in the same way that the original marriage candidates are. The reason for all of this is that she's a shut-in due to severe mental health issues and emotional instability. But, like, we still have people like Shane walk around town, and he's a complete train wreck. Sophia's mental health struggles are meant to be crippling. She's medicated, but it's not enough to prevent her from having emotional breakdowns due to her lack of a proper support system. But the game fails to really sell me on that struggle, because she's simultaneously functional and stable enough to where she's single-handedly running the most successful business in the valley. I can't completely pin it down, but something about the story about her mental health comes off as superficial and insincere. I just can't get over the idea that her character's purpose is to serve as wish fulfillment for someone's dream girl Discord kitten. She acts uncomfortably immature and feels like a teenager. She has an exaggerated cutesy look, she's into nerdy hobbies like cosplay and anime, and her emotional instability and social isolation screams "save me," while she's simultaneously super rich and successful at the same time. I don't know. Maybe I'm a hater. I can't get into it. I don't like this character. Unrelated to any of that, I donated 60 items to the museum and did not get the rusty key for the sewers. Instead, I got a scene of Marlin teasing me with it. It turns out the museum is kind of irrelevant now. You don't even need to see this teaser. The key is simply obtained by getting Marlin to 5 hearts, and I haven't even started. Not a big fan of having this switched up on me. At least they told me what to do. I learned that constructing a deluxe barn or coop unlocks a new tier of building, the Premium Barn and Premium Coop. The upfront cost is quite heavy, and those fur waxes you may not recognize take 11 days to produce from a tree tapper. I'll get one eventually to check out the new animals, but it's out of my price range for a long time. Victor loves butterfish and has a summer birthday, so he's the first person I got to max hearts. I still have a bit of work to go for everyone else I'm befriending, so I have a lot more cutscenes and character dialogue in my future, and I'm hoping I like them as much as Victor's scenes, which I've been enjoying. By the end of summer, I put together enough battery packs and iron bars to repair the shed. It'll be interesting to see what comes of this. It's fun having extra quests and objectives to work toward. I also finally have the spare money to complete the more expensive bolt bundles. This got put off for some time, as I was spending a lot of money on animals, barns, coops, and fruit tree saplings for various community center bundles. These difficult bundles are really enjoyable for the kind of person who thinks the normal ones are too easy, and they're totally optional and disabled by default for everyone else. Robin finished repairing the shed, so let's take a look. The lower space is quite expansive, and can be used as a second wine cellar. There's also a second floor that serves as a secondary greenhouse, with enough space for 6 iridium sprinklers. It's a lot of extra stuff, but I did appreciate the quests and effort involved in unlocking this space. I've got some battery packs left over, and some iridium from geodes, lots of fishing and that meteorite, so I was able to put down some sprinklers and start working on the classic ancient fruit greenhouse setup since I started growing my first 2 ancient fruits back in spring. The new fall seed is the sweet potato. They're very similar to pumpkins in growth time and value. I appreciate that the new crops aren't unbalanced, but Pierre's summer and fall offerings don't have much identity or many uses outside of the new community center bundles. I figured I'd finally go check out Calico Desert now that I repaired the bus, and the area looks totally different. I kinda dig the visual changes, it's a fun change of pace, and I think they have a good design sense for outdoor maps, but it suffers from being weirdly oversized, a problem a lot of areas in Expanded have. The top third is great. I don't know why it needs to extend down so far given how empty it is down there. I was repeatedly resetting the first floor of the Skull Cavern to search for gold ore, and found one of those rare iridium veins that can spawn even on the early floors. That's wild. I was going to just do a normal cavern dive soon. I'm no stranger to getting handfuls of prismatic shards in a day, but I'll happily grab myself an early galaxy sword. Just like every other weapon in the intended progression path, the Galaxy Sword got huge buffs, which really feels like overkill. It's got 10 to 20 more base damage and a big pile of crit. I don't like this change. In the base game, the rare Dragon Tooth weapons from the volcano are slightly stronger than Galaxy weapons, but worse than Infinity weapons. Dragon Tooth weapons didn't get buffed and expanded, but the buffed Galaxy weapons now do more damage, swing faster, and also have crit. And that crit was the main identity of the Dragon Tooth set. Why would you ever get excited to find a rare dragon tooth weapon if they're just worse? A middle tier upgrade on the progression path just got obsoleted and effectively removed. If I found one, I'd just throw it away, which I think is a shame for a rare interesting volcano item. The town quest board just went up and added some new quests to the list to include the new villagers, like one to provide wine and cheese for Olivia. I also ran into a sweet scene with Andy to cap off his growth and character arc. I really enjoyed his character and what he has to add to the game. While I don't think I'll finish befriending the Joja characters before I finish the community center and kick them out of town, there is a hint of character development here for Morris. I don't think I'll see it through, but there's definitely content on this side of things if you want to explore it. I've already been making good use of the greenhouse space in Grandpa's shed, and I'm about ready to unlock the original greenhouse to boot. Community Center completion is approaching, which means new content afterwards, but I can't finish up until winter, as the new winter forage required can't be grown early from winter seeds. I haven't talked about Claire much, but I really enjoy her character and story. She's a burnout, stuck in a dead-end job, with a character arc about rediscovering her passion for life, when given the opportunity and support needed to spread her wings. She joins the weekly aerobics class and becomes part of the community, and she later picks up on her love for film and screenplays, really tying into how JojaMart gets replaced by a movie theater where she is much happier working. I'm planning to marry her and give her a place to stay since she's going to be unemployed in a couple weeks once I take out JojaMart. Oh yeah, it's time to plant the greenhouse now that I've got it unlocked. I was kind of alarmed to walk in and discover that it's twice as large. I think Expanded is trying too hard to be overly generous. I already have a second greenhouse in the shed, and I think this new greenhouse is kind of ugly compared to the original, despite visual updates to the edges and walls since it's just a giant square of dirt. The interior is too large to fit on the screen. I don't really subscribe to the idea that bigger is better. I spent fall slamming out skill masteries in the Skull Cavern, and I finally have fishing mastery, which means I'm putting on a super overkill setup with 2 bobbers and food to catch a legendary fish that's been evading me. This fish has the dart movement pattern and maxed out difficulty, making it harder than the legend. Planning on putting this guy in a fish pond. I can get golden animal crackers now, so I'll throw one on my tadpole pond so I can really abuse frog legs properly. I've been skimming past the days too quickly to ever show off the farm, but I can highly recommend trying the Grandpa's farm if you want to play Expanded. I really fell in love with the layout, and I've enjoyed decorating and filling out the space. I've had complaints about things here and there, but the playthrough as a whole so far has been a blast. I finally earned my way into the sewers after thinking I'd have the rusty key like 5 weeks ago. I know there's a bit of a story rewrite, but I'm mostly just annoyed it took so long. Work on Marlin's friendship early. He loves root splatter and you can get winter roots from blue slimes. I've reached 8 hearts of Claire, so I was able to start dating in time before JojaMart gets closed. She mainly commutes into town for work, so it's important to build up hearts before rendering her unemployed. Side note, the wool snapper fish pond might be disgustingly overpowered. Look at this, 14 roe! Each wool snapper roe is worth 80% as much as a legend roe, but on average, snappers seem to produce 5 times more roe than legends. I don't see the wisdom in making the shiny new modded fish so much better than the originals. It feels like too self-important, I guess. It doesn't rain in winter, so I used a rain totem to spawn in the old mariner to buy the mermaid's pendant for Claire. I also finished gathering the winter forage I needed, so today is Community Center completion day. Since I've finished the Community Center, that means Morris is gone forever. Unlike Martin and Claire, he won't ever come back to town. I figure I'll do the wizard's quest to hit up the witch's swamp now that the area's unlocked, and where am I? The swamp has been changed into a giant maze, roughly the size of Jupiter. It's quite hard to find the correct path without looking up a map or using the in-game screenshot tool. The area is also crawling with hard-hitting monsters, and when I decided to check for new fish, I got ambushed and killed. I really don't like the idea of putting new fish in a hostile area where off-screen flying monsters can approach at any time. I came back, took a screenshot, and traced a line to find the exit, where the normal witch's swamp exists in its original state. But the warp to the witch's hut is now part of the greater teleportation hub in the wizard's basement I'm starting to get access to. Next day I got a notification that something appeared in the western forest, which was misleading as nothing visibly changed about, well, the western part of the forest. The main part of Cindersap, though, has this hidden warp pad, leading to another really big maze. I don't know what's with this mod and big mazes. I just looked up a map. I didn't feel like stumbling around. As a reward for choosing the community center path, a bunch of Junimos set up shop, selling artifacts you might be missing, copies of the legendary fish, which I later learned isn't a one-off, these restock daily, so you can just spam the overpowered wolf snapper fish ponds and ruin the economy. There's also rare seeds, easy access to blue grass, which I think is a good thing, some fun decorations, as well as rare fertilizers you normally get in Ginger Island. I also got a letter today from, the Goblin Henchman, who now has a quest line to follow. This involves gathering a bunch of swamp items to unlock the Henchman as a befriendable NPC. I don't think the Henchman is one of the things in the base game that needed expanding. It's a very one-note character. I started his quest, but these large ghosts in the marsh deal an alarming amount of damage. I don't know, it feels a little ridiculous. Time to see if Ginger Island had any major changes. First off, there's a beautiful coral reef off the shores and a lot of new fish in the water. I love this change just for the visuals of it. Otherwise, Ginger Island is mostly untouched. The volcano dungeon is the same, the golden walnuts are in the same places, but I did encounter some guy hanging out on the volcano summit. Lance is actually a new bachelor, and he's unlocked by reaching the volcano caldera, but building friendship with him is required to unlock 2 new endgame areas, so you better get gifting even if you aren't interested in him. Back at home, I got a very sad scene. Just come into town, Claire. You can move in with me if you just show up and let me propose. Lance also ambushes you at your doorstep to give you his phone number. I mean, schedule. I'm glad the game lets you know when and where you can find him, because he's a roaming NPC you have to befriend and half his days are spent in areas I haven't unlocked. I really don't need to do this to make money hand over fist at this point, but I'll set up the Ginger Island farm with starfruit and try to buy all the expensive stuff before this video's over. Claire came into town for Tuesday aerobics class. I think I screwed up last week by making it rain, but she's here now and I can finally propose. I then went back to finish the swamp quest for the henchman, and screwed it up again. That enemy type is wild, 1000 HP, and it doesn't take knockback, so you can just get walked down in one shot. The wizard called me to his tower the next day to unlock some late game benefits. Apparently, the farmer gets to set up their own warp teleportation hub, which is kind of cool. I'll look into that after my unfinished business in the swamp. God damn it. Okay, so the swamp sucks. Let's do some whimsical forest magic. You get a personal magical grove to visit, and you can set up connecting warp points to the central hub, starting with the wizard tower teleport, which makes getting back to the swamp much easier now that I can teleport quickly to the wizard, then quickly to the swamp. The grove also spawns in forage every 2 weeks, and these berries are extremely good. Those buffs are perfect for Skull Cavern runs, +2 speed to run around like a maniac, extra luck to find more ladders, and magnetism to pick up bombed out ore. Finishing the swamp quest lets you befriend the henchman, which, like, I guess I'll do, but wow, I don't really care. All these extra NPCs must be really overwhelming if you're gunning for perfection, since gifting and friendship is such a slow, laborious process if it involves like 40 guys. Combat in endgame areas being harder means that Ginger Island's enchanting system is actually pretty important, so make sure to slam rubies or aquamarines onto your weapon for more damage. I'll try for the Artful enchantment on the hammer later so I can spam the AoE special attack to keep the swarms off of me. I really wish I could turn the abandoned JojaMart into the movie theater, but the door doesn't open up in winter since it's a lightning bolt during a storm that breaks down the door. Honestly, I should have popped a rain totem to see if that works or not. Even if I can't employ Claire for a bit, I can still marry her and make her a permanent part of Pelican Town. I think she's my favorite character in Expanded. It's just heartwarming to watch her flourish once life isn't grinding her down. Getting her away from JojaMart mirrors the farmer's own escape from their corporate Joja job. That's why Claire's story fits in so well with the original game. I think she's maybe the most perfect addition I've experienced in this mod. I'm really curious what happens to her if you go the JojaMart route instead. I have spare money, so I'll skip the rest of the golden walnuts on Ginger Island. I'm mostly interested in experiencing new content, and this is old stuff to me. Speaking of new content, I've spent enough time befriending Lance to unlock a new area. Remember when I pointed out Marlin's boat way back in spring? This is the Highlands, a large wild area focused around combat. The enemies are numerous and hit hard, so bring plenty of healing food. There's a fun gimmick to the Highlands. You can earn high-end seeds for new valuable monster crops, which are good alternatives to the other endgame crops like ancient fruit and starfruit, but you really gotta earn them by fighting for your life in a late game area with a lot of prerequisites to access, so I'm 100% okay with these new crops being highly profitable. It's something to work toward in the late game, and I think starfruit is already over-centralizing, so I'd like to see alternatives. Like most areas in Expanded, the Highlands are a bit large, but I'm okay with it this time, since it's not a maze and is pretty simple to navigate. However, this cave back here is a bit ridiculous. If you can handle the monsters, there's what feels like infinite ore rocks dotting a huge interior space, vastly larger than anything you'd ever see in the mines. Maybe it's okay that non-iridium ores have an easier mining method this late into the game, for similar reasons that I justified the monster crops being strong, but sometimes it feels like Expanded crosses a line in its generosity. I think that putting new fish in here is questionable, because it's really difficult to scour the entire place for bats, and they might just show up at literally any moment, and I couldn't fail the fish quickly enough to survive. For some reason, I didn't go down at 0 HP, so I decided to finish the fish, so at least I caught it before falling to my knees in pain. Robin offers a new building once you've shipped enough wine, called, the winery. It's quite expensive, but it's a third area for aging wine if you're interested. I'll look into building one to check it out, but this is the kind of thing that takes a full year to make a profit. There's a boss monster hiding atop a winding peak of the Highlands, but I kind of just stood diagonally and never took any hits, so kinda anticlimactic. I missed this earlier, but there's a secret cave in the Highlands jam-packed with diamonds. This sounds super lucrative, but even with mining mastery to double gems, it's like 30k worth of diamonds. It's not nothing, but at this point, I'm making over 10 times that much per batch of wine. If you make it to the Highlands early, the various goodies like gems and free slime eggs could make for a substantial daily income, but I've already outscaled it by regular farming and my legendary fish ponds. I learned that the Junimo shops in the woods also add a teleport to your nexus, so it's trivial to return here anytime, which makes the restocking legendary fish shop pretty dang busted for ponds. I grabbed another snapper, and I'm going to see what the deal is with turret fish. They're likely equally overpowered since their base value is twice that of a legend. I've been thinking about how daunting Expanded might be to perfectionists who want 100% completion. Even just catching all fish is a big deal, as many of them are tied to late game areas. There are 2 fishing locations I haven't even unlocked yet, and a lot of the fish are difficult to catch or located in dangerous zones full of monsters. Complaints aside, there's something special happening today that I really like. The 22nd of each season is Community Day, in which the community center, actually, serves as a community center. This is something that the base game dearly lacks, and it's great to see the whole town gather at the building you put so much love into restoring. The community center feels more like an extended progression quest, rather than an actual location in the base game, and this fixes that. Wonderful stuff. I'm coming up on a full year and mostly out of new stuff to cover, and what's left is heavily time-gated. While I wait, I'll keep making batches of wine for money and buy expensive stuff like teleportation obelisks, so the farm feels fairly complete by the time I'm done. I'll also poke around for any fish I haven't caught from my fishing collection, since I'm already over 100 fish deep, and I'll keep building more obelisks. After a full year spent experiencing Stardew Expanded, I feel like it was definitely worth the time. While I certainly don't think that every new edition necessarily improves the game, playing through Expanded helped rekindle a sense of discovery and wonder that was starting to fade due to how familiar I am with Stardew Valley. The effort put into this mod is frankly monumental. The sheer amount of content in terms of new NPCs, new areas, and new items means you'll probably find something that you like, and they really did try to make everything integrate alongside the base game. I also felt that Expanded did a really good job of pacing out its content so that you don't get overwhelmed at any one moment. I understand now why people say that Expanded is a clear upgrade to Stardew Valley. I'm not actually convinced to make that claim myself, but I get why they'd say so. I think at many points during this video I've been quite critical, but I'm the type of person who's critical of things that I like, maybe as part of a desire to see them in their best possible state. I wouldn't call Expanded a strictly better experience, but it's a damn fun sandbox to play in, and I've had a good time. I'm not quite done though, but I'm really going to speed through the rest, sleeping through the days as necessary to see some time-gated content I still haven't unlocked. That starts with the farm expansion. There's a small patch of land on the right that Lewis is willing to sell to the farmer, and the Grandpa's farm isn't the biggest map out there, so this seems like a fun upgrade to buy, and the price seems fair for a farm extension. I need to max out Hearts with Lance to unlock a small new location, but I finally have the movie theater unlocked, run by my beautiful wife. Some weekly movies will help build up Hearts. Lance is annoying to befriend quickly as he's unimpressed by some of the universally loved gifts like the rabbit's foot, which is frustrating because I saved some for him. I didn't know I'd get this expansion to the farm ahead of time, so I didn't plan how to use the space. Maybe a premium barn would do well here. I was very annoyed to find out that Lance has a birthday on a Monday, a day where he hides out, unreachable, in a late-game unlockable area that's time-gated to about the start of your second summer. You'll miss his first birthday because you haven't possibly made it to Ginger Island to meet him, then you'll miss his second birthday because he's unreachable at that time. This is, frankly, infuriating for a character where maxing out friendship is required to unlock not one, but 2 new locations. I'm pretty rich now, so I'll build myself the winery, which is so unexpectedly enormous I can't easily fit it next to my fish ponds. I think I'll chop down my mahogany trees and put the winery in front of the farm cave. For now, I can build it in my future pasture area. I've also got 3 out of 4 obelisks constructed, but I need bananas for the Ginger Island one. The winery takes like over a full week to construct, but let's check it out. Given the enormous exterior footprint, I almost expected it to be larger on the inside. This is like the one time the mod creator held back and didn't make something really big. Max capacity is 180 casks if you fill every spot and don't leave room to walk around, which is smaller than the cellar attached to the farmhouse. Let's move this bad boy to the open space in front of the cave. It looks nice there, and I think the exterior design of the building is really good. I'll set up a premium barn next. These are fairly large in their own right. I can't easily fit one in my current pasture, but I wanted to set up a new pasture anyway. I'll decorate that space with grass and trees later. With the island obelisk constructed, my farm is approaching its final state. I'm not interested in doing much more besides buying new animals for the premium barn. It took weeks and weeks, but I finally maxed out my friendship with Lance thanks to the movie theater. I haven't said much about him, because, to be honest, he's not just a latecomer, he's really uninteresting to me for reasons I can't really pin down. I think it's because he's too detached and mysterious. I haven't been able to care about his cutscenes at all. But we'll check out this new little island he's brought us to that's going to be added to the Wizard Tower's Warp Hub tomorrow. Fable Reef is a small island that doesn't really have anything on it besides foraging, fishing, and a fairly empty Adventurer's Guild Hall. I was kind of excited about the fishing, since I'm fairly close to catching every fish, but I quickly came to hate this area. They put way too many fish here. There are over a dozen different fish in the water, which makes it annoying to pin down some of the new ones. I didn't see a single daggerfish, viper eel, or turretfish in many casts. Fish from Ginger Island and the mainland didn't really need to crowd out a zone that already has 5 new fish in it. My sense of discovery quickly turned into a sense of being generally annoyed. Adding too much content can overwhelm and frustrate players seeking to do everything, and it's probably the main reason some people don't like Expanded. Anyway, let me order some new animals for the barn. Expanded added camels, which are kind of terrible because they're very expensive and only produce every other day, which is a bad look when the upfront cost of the barn and camels clears $500,000 gold. It would take forever to pay itself off. Thankfully, Expanded also added bears, which they remembered to make good. Bears produce valuable honey daily, and you blessedly don't need to process the honey into some sort of machine before selling it. They're completely hands-off and generate a respectable income with golden animal crackers to boost their output. They don't even eat grass, or any food at all apparently. Time-gated toward the end of Spring Year 2 is a new Junimo quest, all for the purpose of unlocking yet another NPC to build 10 hearts with. I've admittedly run out of enthusiasm for that sort of thing, particularly since I've been so unimpressed with the henchman, I haven't even bothered to put more of his nonsense in this video. This also serves to introduce another new NPC as a bridge to bring us to the final unlockable area a few days later. The wizard can't read the Junimo language this time, so a quirky witch stops by to look at it for us. I need to pay 200 star fruits for the privilege of continuing this quest, but I grow those by the hundreds, so it's no big deal for me. This unlocks a new NPC, Apples, but at this point I don't want to spend 8 more weeks of gameplay building up friendship hearts to see what they have to say. I think I'm very nearly done playing this file, so let's skip right ahead to the final unlockable area, the Crimson Badlands. Finishing your teleportation nexus, which includes a teleport to Apples, hence the time gate, will cause the previously met witch to summon you to a brutal late-game area, the Badlands, which serves as the final boss of difficult combat-oriented exploration zones. The Badlands are large, desolate, and full of frequently respawning hordes of powerful monsters, and I felt underprepared for the challenge. The new menu UI is pretty sick though. I like the dark borders on everything while you're in the area. Located on the west end is the Iridium Quarry. This area is quite generous with the Iridium ore. There's a few hundred ore at stake if you can survive, but it's jammed full of mummies and ghosts, and the mummies in particular have over 2000 HP and deal over 100 damage, so it's quite stressful to find time to take out your pickaxe for the big meteorites. If there was ever a time for a Crusader enchanted weapon, it's here. That'll do 50% more damage and permanently down mummies without the need to finish them off with explosives. You'd do well to upgrade your Galaxy weapon to its Infinity version as well. The extra damage would go a long way. Personally, I can get over 1000 Iridium ore on a really good Skull Cavern run, so I don't need this place. Also of note, there's a semi-secret treasure cave in the corner of the map if you can handle all the enemies. I can't. I can't handle this. I'm just gonna run straight through. The reward is a pile of treasure chests and a slingshot upgrade if you trade in a prismatic shard. The other point of interest in the Badlands is a pond of 2 new fish. I've already vocalized my complaints about adding fish to dangerous zones full of flying enemies, and the Badlands have a seemingly endless trickle of incoming serpents, so it's pretty much impossible to fish safely. I think it's almost unforgivable how often this problem comes up in Expanded. A combat trinket to keep you safe is a must. Several would help. I have a fairy box for healing, but I'd really recommend the ice rod to stop incoming enemies, or maybe the frog could take one out. In the end, I did fill out most of the fishing log, but I can't be bothered to get the last couple of stragglers. It's surprisingly quite difficult to finish this collection in Expanded. The last thing I'll try to respawn is that huge black serpent I saw by the treasure cave, but hanging out down there didn't make another one show up, and getting hit by an ice spell out here is a death sentence, as they deal like 85 damage and freeze you in place to take further hits. The Badlands are so comically deadly, I think you're really meant to buy the attack and defense potion sold occasionally by NPCs at the outpost tower. With all major locations visited, I think I'm done playing, so I'll tour my farm and show you around while I organize my final thoughts. The main question I posed before starting all of this was if Expanded is simply worth playing. And yeah, I think it's easily worth giving it a shot. I don't think it's good enough to necessarily replace the original game for me, but I did genuinely fall in love with some of the changes like the addition of Claire and the visual updates and decorations around town. Expanded isn't perfect, but I had fun, and I'd even play it again to check out the new JoJo storyline. I'm a bit picky when it comes to playing with mods in my games, and I think large-scale expansions or overhaul-type mods have to meet a really high bar for me to enjoy them without really going off on how it doesn't meet the standards set by the original work. The mod author did a pretty great job, and I can't imagine how many uncountable hours went into making all this content. Now that I've made it clear I generally like Expanded, I do have to flush out every lingering complaint rattling around my system. Going for 100% perfection would drive me mildly insane. It's not just that there's more things to do, like 15 more NPCs to max hearts with, it's also how long you have to wait to get everything done. There's a year 3 NPC I haven't even mentioned, and I think it's such a heavy commitment to expect you to play a single save file for 100 hours just to meet someone for the first time, and then you still need to reach max hearts with them. I got stuff to do, man. Expanded also frequently tries to be too big at times. I brought this up very early on, but it really messes with the sense of scale established by the base game. Pretty much every new location is just too large and dwarfs the size of the base game areas, like it's trying too hard to be bigger and better. And crossing these vast expanses would have been a huge pain in the ass if I didn't spend the entire playthrough jamming enormous speed buffs onto my character 24/7. I feel like large empty maps are worse at honing in on what's actually important. It feels diluted at times. Bridging off that thought, there's also a huge push to expand the world in a geographical sense. You didn't see me view enough full cutscenes to know what I'm talking about, but characters endlessly bring up names of locations, new and old, peppered across the dialogue like the writer had a quota to meet. Fern Islands, Gotaro, Zuzu City, Grampleton, Castletown. Every character feels like they're constantly reminding you of a living, breathing, larger world envisioned by the creator of Expanded, which I think isn't the point of Stardew Valley. The point of Stardew to me is what's here at home, joining and integrating yourself into a small town and its community. I think that Expanded, with all its characters that live elsewhere, traveling in and out of the valley, it kind of just loses focus at times. I think they should have focused more on things in and around Pelican Town, like the new Community Day festival that I really like, instead of building things up to an unreleased castle town in the Badlands on another continent that we'll maybe never get to enter. Well, at this point I've said my piece, so I'd like to hear yours. Let me know what you think of Expanded down in the comments, and if there are any other big mods you think I should cover for a future video, feel free to make a case for them. That's all from me for now. Cheers.